Good day. This is Mark Randall, and this is a series of short marketing concepts for agents that sell critical care. Just some interesting tidbits to kind of give you some ideas on how to go out there and market this plan. Remember, the first concept that we always want to talk about is going after long-term care insurance declines and uninsurables. That's basically what this product was designed for. So if you're not familiar with that, go to my recorded training and review that video, because that's a real good place to start with out there, especially if you're a long-term care insurance agent. This volume is going to concentrate more on different ideas on how you can use critical care out there. First of all, let's talk about seniors that have Advantage plans. Now, if you're not familiar with Advantage plans, you don't need to worry about that too much, okay? Let's get an idea of what Advantage plans do for a senior. Basically, they're a choice that's an alternative to original Medicare plus a Medicare supplement. Typically, if a person has a Medicare supplement, that's going to be pretty substantially priced today compared to an Advantage plan. Many times, a senior could save $50 to $150 a month by switching over to an Advantage plan. In exchange for that lower premium, what's going to happen is he's going to have a policy that's going to have co-pays or co-insurance and deductibles for health services. An example might be that he has a plan that he can save $100 a month in premium, but every time he goes to the doctor, he's got to pay $10. Goes to a specialist, it's $20. If he goes in the hospital, he'll pay co-pay for so many days. Most of them will have a maximum annual out-of-pocket cost that's going to range somewhere between $3,000 to $6,000, sometimes more than that. The attractiveness to it is very simple. Okay, there are plans that are going to save the senior money, and if the senior's pretty healthy, they're going to say, I might try this. Okay, if you're going to go out there and use this market, the first thing you want to do is look for low-cost plans out there. Typically, the lower cost of the premium for the Advantage plan is going to equal to higher copays or higher coinsurance. Although almost every Advantage plan is going to have certain areas that they're weak in. Almost every one of them is going to be weak in one or two or more of these areas. First of all, hospital inpatient. Many plans are going to have $100 or a $200 copay. That's going to have to come out of this. Okay. Next is going to be anytime a person gets cancer and has chemo and or radiation. That's going to be an area there's going to be substantial copays. When we get into new drugs, experimental procedures, we might see plans that don't cover some of them. And outpatient surgery is typically going to be an area that plans are going to be weak in. Okay. But always remember, to the client, the advantage and the attractiveness of this plan is that they're going to be saving $100+ a month by switching from the Medicare supplement over to the Advantage plan. So keep that in the back of your mind as we're going through this. If you're a senior out there and you're looking at an Advantage plan, let's take a look at what their decision is. I'm going to use a situation right up here in Minnesota just to give you an example of this. A traditional Medicare supplement here, many clients have typically a plan that's equivalent to a Plan F out there. It's going to cost right in the area of about $235 a month. That's the main carrier in our state here. They're going to have to carry a separate drug plan that's going to run them $35. Total out-of-pocket cost is going to be about $270 a month. But it's going to cover 100% of everything out there. So the typical senior shouldn't have any out-of-pocket expenses with the Medicare supplement. So now, first option the senior has is pay that $270. As an alternative, though, I could walk into that senior and offer him an Advantage plan at $49 a month. And that's going to include the drug plan in it. So now we're looking at a pretty substantial savings here right off the bat. Weak spot in it is the hospital copay. $200 a day up to 7 days, and it could happen multiple times a year. Otherwise, the copays are pretty good. $10 primary doctor, $20 specialist, $175 ambulance. Maximum out-of-pocket is $4,000 a year. So if I'm sitting down with a couple and we're comparing these two situations side by side, if the senior couple moves from the traditional Medicare supplement over to the Advantage plan, they're going to save $2,652 per person. So as a couple, over $5,000 by making this move. The potential reward is that they're going to make this move, not have any medical expenses during the year. They could save $2,652 plus get the additional benefits of the Advantage plan they're throwing in, silver sneakers and stuff like that. The potential risk is they have a bad year health-wise. And because they have a bad year health-wise, they end up having to pay the full $4,000 out of pocket. They could have saved $2,652, or they did save $2,652. So if I take the $4,000 minus the $2,652, that means that they're going to end up paying $2,348 out of pocket. Now, if you got a senior or a senior couple here that's pretty healthy, that's a pretty attractive alternative. Many of them are going to say, I'm going to take a shot at this and do that $2,652 savings. So that's why people buy Advantage plans out there. It is attractive to them. When I talk to a person that already has an Advantage plan or is going to have an Advantage plan, I can use two different approaches here. Let's take a look at a person that already has an Advantage plan. When I start the conversation with them, I want to ask them, did you guys have a Medicare supplement before you switched to an Advantage plan? If they say yes, I'm going to say, how much money did you save when you switched over here? What I want to do is I want to establish the savings that they got when they went to that Advantage plan versus a Medicare supplement. If the person says, no, I started right out with an Advantage plan, I'm going to say, are you familiar with the cost of a Medicare supplement out there? And I'm going to give them the price of a major carrier in the area and show them the savings that they've received by having an Advantage plan versus a supplement. Once I establish that savings out there, then I'm going to say, you know what? If you're familiar with your Advantage plan and you understand it, you know that the problem is when you switch to the Advantage plan from a supplement, you have copays now, right? You have some out-of-pocket costs out there. Now, typically, you're not too concerned about this because $10 for a doctor isn't a very big deal. But do you have your plan that we could take a look at it? And then I'm going to look at their plan if they bring it out. If they don't, I'm going to say, I'm not familiar exactly with the plan that you have right here, but I'll give you some examples of what can occur. You might have a hospital copay that says when you go into the hospital, you have to pay so much out of pocket for a certain number of days. Chemotherapy, you might see that they say you're going to have to pay 20% of the cost. A lot of times Advantage plans will have a pretty high copay for the ambulatory surgical events out there. All of these are events that could result in out-of-pocket costs to you. So you know what? It's kind of nice to save the premium by going to an Advantage plan. And in normal years, your copay shouldn't even come close to the savings. So you're making out good. But what can hurt you is if all of a sudden you have a critical illness that results in a lot of usage in 1 year. You have a stroke, okay? Or all of a sudden something happens to you that the multiple trips to the doctor and everything, all of a sudden those savings disappear fast, and all of a sudden you got out-of-pocket costs. So a lot of people who have gone to Advantage plans have found that there's a real good way to kind of hedge your bet here. And that is a plan called critical care. And I'll go into explaining how critical care works. If you notice in critical care, we're covering almost all of the major risks out there. We're not covering them all, of course. If you get in a car accident, you might have out of pocket, or you fall and break your leg, etc. But we're covering the major critical illnesses out there, the things that are going to result in big out-of-pocket costs for you. And you know what? The cool part about this is that you can pick up a plan for this for a very reasonable cost. Let's take a look at it. I'm just using Wisconsin here just because I had it set at that. But for a 70-year-old individual, if I write $1,000 critical care, 6-month benefit, I'm looking at a premium of $622. So what I'm doing here is I'm designing a plan that's going to give my client $6,000, enough to pay his out-of-pocket, plus some more cash. Plus, I've got the potential of paying $2,000 a month here. So actually, I've got the potential of $12,000 benefits being paid. If you're the senior, you're looking at this, you're saying, okay, if I spend part of the savings that I got here, I can provide from $6,000 to a $12,000 benefit if I have one of those covered conditions. It kind of protects the premium savings out there. because I reduce my risk a little bit more. And any additional benefits I receive over and above what I need for the out-of-pocket costs can be used to cover other expenses. Now, you want to be careful here. If you're going to use this concept for selling, don't quote too high of a premium, because if you do, you might find out all of a sudden that you got a client that's sitting there looking at this going, you just wiped out all my savings here. Why don't I just go to a Medicare supplement? So if you're going to use this concept, you want to keep the premium down to maximize that savings for your client. This is the end of the first marketing concept, talking to seniors that have Advantage plans.